Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships. Today we're going to talk about something called the pullback. And you're going to want to understand this. Before I get to this, as always, I want to remind anyone who wants to talk more about healing, please look at the video notes, get more info on my healing program. Not only will you understand things like the pullback, you'll also understand how to heal from it. So let's talk about the pullback. The pullback is one of the most primary tricks in the narcissistic person's relationship book. And it comes up most often and most profoundly in intimate relationships. However, it plays out in every narcissistic relationship. Every one of you has experienced this, or frankly, you wouldn't be watching this channel. What's that trick? It's something called the pullback. What is it? Let me use an example. So you're in a new relationship. Maybe you're being love bombed. Maybe you're just really into the person. You're relaxing, enjoying them. Maybe even being more open and vulnerable. And then just as you start getting more interested, bam, the pullback. It's kind of an evil genius maneuver because most people want to keep the good stuff, that love bomby stuff going. So it puts you in this position of what can I do or say to get them back in? You wait for them to text back or call when they stop doing it as much. You hope to heaven that they don't flake on your plans again or reschedule. So then, after all that flakiness, when they show up again, you're so relieved that you would sell the keys to the kingdom of heaven to make sure that they don't pull back again. After the pullback, when they go away and come back, you're more likely to be compliant, less likely to make a demand, or to do anything that could lead to the pullback happening again. Each time the pullback happens, you may panic a little. It can feel like abandonment. It can feel like rejection. So you react to it that way. You don't want the rejection or abandonment, especially if you're really into this new person. So each time they do it, and then they come back, you become more and more yielding and don't even begin to question them in any way because you don't want them to pull back again. The pullback is tactical because they are getting rewarded for it. Each time they do it, the other person in the relationship gives in more and more and may even throw in some other stuff like validation to keep them around. You may even make pointed sacrifices or give the narcissist anything they want to keep them from doing the pullback again. This can be part of why narcissistic relationships so often move too quickly. You may find yourself moving in too fast or not staying at work too late, believing that the more you are with them, the less that they'll pull back because you're always there, and that's not true. They'll still find a way to pull back on you. Frankly, pulling back is an old sales maneuver. The salesperson kind of walks away, becomes disinterested, doesn't take you as seriously as a customer. I mean, it's got to be somewhere in sales training that these folks are taught how to capitalize on our trauma bonds. And lots of people in these sales situations, for some unfortunate reason, want to get back that salesperson who is now walking away with their special deal. And then the salesperson knows they've got you. Or the salesperson may play the game of looking a little hurt and rejected, and that can play on the pleasers out there too. But the pullback pulls on our need to please, our fears of rejection and our abandonment. And no joke, as I was preparing this video, I took a break to check my email. And someone was doing an email sales blast. I guess I didn't respond to it. Then they tried the pullback. Since we haven't heard from you, we just have to assume that you're taking a different direction than us. Oh, Lord, for someone like me, that plays on my pleasy trauma bonds. I'd always want to respond. And that's why I have really wonderful people who answer my emails. It's kind of a shame we can't have people do that same thing for us in our trauma bonded first dates in the same way. Now, the pullback doesn't just happen in narcissistic, romantic, or intimate relationships. It can happen in friendships too, and still feel quite potent, especially if this is a new friend or if you rely on friends for social support and connection. The pullback is also a hallmark of toxic families. If you had narcissistic parents, you may recall them pulling back when you made any kind of demand, ask, of any kind. They might become cold or indifferent. You learned really quickly to not demand anything, to not need anything, ask anything, or do any of the things that would lead the parent to coldly withdraw. The attachment needs of a child are such that they can't afford to have the parent withdraw. So the narcissistic parent slowly trains the child to yield to everything the parent wants, because the parent knows that they can withdraw and that child is going to come right back into line. While it may not be as potent, these patterns can also happen at work, where a boss or other key player in the workplace may pull away when they perceive you are not in line with their agenda, and that may be experienced by you as a risk for your career, your position, or whatever's happening at work. But when it comes down to it, the pullback is the hallmark move of the intimate narcissistic relationship. It's an integral part of the construction of the trauma bond. You find yourself fighting to be in something toxic because the good days leave you wanting more, and the pulling back makes you want to fight for it. It feels gross to think that they're almost doing the equivalent of training you, but that is how the trauma bond works. They are gradually shaping you by playing on your vulnerabilities. So, what do you do about this? Well, you have to know it's a thing. And it also means unpacking your own core wounds around abandonment and rejection before you ever attempt to date or get into a new relationship. If these are core issues for you, then the pullback maneuver is going to have tremendous potency and pull you into a toxic dance. I am not naive enough to think that I can tell the world, hey everyone, when someone pulls back, just let them go. But honestly, if you did that, it would work. Sadly, the pullback that the narcissist does is a test. They're trying to figure out if you're going to be patient or try to get them to notice you. And once you fall for it, then they know they have you on the hook. If you don't do it, so they pull back and you're like, forget it, it may raise a new problem, because now they may double down and try to win you over. And then you may think you won because, look, they're chasing me after the pullback. Not so quick, gang. That's a trap. Because then they will just wait longer next time before they do the pullback. And then you may be even more invested and fall for it. So the hardcore play with the pullback is that when someone does it, when they pull back, you don't try to win them back. You get into therapy or whatever you need to do to work through the abandonment issues, the trauma bonds of it all. And when they come skulking back, which they will, you may want to give it another spin. Okay, so let's do a little bit of tiger's cage here. Do it. But the next time they do the pullback, it's goodbye. I can see giving a little bit of margin of error for a decent person's commitment fears, but then only one more time, if there is a second pullback. It is absolutely essential at that point you walk and don't get hoovered, because the longer you are resistant to them, the harder they're going to try. So when this narcissistic fool is having a message skywritten over your house, ignore it. The pullback is the core of the narcissistic courtship, and it sets the foundation for the trauma bond in a new relationship. So that means if you have an existing history of trauma-bonded relationships, the pullback will all but guarantee that those bonds will be cemented. So again, I have no doubt that some of you have been in those relationships where it's going great, love bomb, magical connection, woohoo, yay, I love this. And then bang, they pull back. You don't hear from them. They don't text you back. They don't call you back. And you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Before you ask yourself, what did you do? Start wondering, might this just be an example of the narcissistic pullback? Thanks again.